In issues surrounding Nigeria's economic future, particularly in the context of the 2025 budget and national resource allocation. Now, with rising concerns over the squanderings of public funds and ineffective use of the nation's limited resources, key areas such as health, education, and agricultural investment remain underfunded. In a recent statement by Peter Obi, former presidential candidate of the LP party for 2023, emphasized the need for the government to prioritize its small resources toward these essential sectors to drive development.
Now, the news Central's exclusive that aired on Wednesday on News Central TV, Peter Obi voiced his concerns about Nigeria's inability to sustain certain national assets and institutions. Notably, he criticized the absence of a national library, befitting Nigeria's status, a consequence of mismanagement and fund diversion. Obi also hinted at the exclusive, or rather excessive, cost of maintaining a presidential jet and raised the possibility of returning to a parliamentary system as a measure of transparency and cost efficiency.
Now, on the broader issues, subsidy removal, the role of agriculture in combating food insecurity, and the persistent problems of inflation and corruption continue to weigh heavily on the minds of Nigerians. Obi's advocacy for the right investment in the agricultural sector aims to address these problems, but will the government step up in time is the question. What can we expect from the 2025 budget allocations, and how will the government tackle inefficiencies in ministries and also agencies? So to discuss these issues, we are joined by a distinguished panel. We have Devo Kore on video call with us. He's a public affairs analyst. And of course, also in the studio with us, Funke Treasure. She's a lecturer and broadcaster, and also Olabode Afolayan, trader and MD of PILS Limited. I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Before we go into the questions, we want to begin. We would like to play an excerpt from the exclusive on the government's need to prioritize resources and also mismanagement of funds. Let's take a look at this from the NC exclusive from Wednesday.
The budget of, say, National Library. A country the size of Nigeria does not have a National Library to date. We have the National Assembly trying to build its own library for about 15 billion naira. When the budget of National Library is not up to 1 billion. That is where the whole nation, and I'm sure the amount of their own library, cumulatively, if we put all the universities together, you have budget of, again, National Assembly Clinic being 15 billion naira. When, if you put together the entire teaching hospitals, which is, in quotes, the height of our healthcare, if you put teaching hospital of our foremost universities, Ibadan, Nsukka, University of Nigeria, Ahmadu Bello, Lagos, is less than the budget of the capital budget, is less than the budget of National Assembly Clinic. I can go on and on. The Ministry of Science as a ministry, the entire capital budget is about 6 billion. When the budget of the car park of House of Rep and the Senate is about 6 billion.
So the priority of the government is to create car park.
It's totally misplaced in today's system. And if you've seen that the pardon, which they said is not true, have now become even a reality. Because if you go where you are now seeing in places of like National Space Research Development Agency And you're now seeing 80 million for dust bins in Oyo, 80 million for sensitization of unwanted pregnancy, 170 million for sensitization for treasury rulers on peace and conflict resolution in space agency.
So
You're
what
not
space
seeing-
agency got to do with traditional rulers?
You can believe it. You're now seeing where we have about 300 million over a national news agency of Nigeria for tricycles and school renovation. And you can go on and on and on and seeing things like that. And you ask yourself, how did we come here? Like I've always said, government needs to prioritize our small resources in key development areas, which are health, education, and per capita, pulling people out of poverty. And these areas are not getting enough support.
Now, I'm going to come to Devo Ekorie. Or Devo, if you're there with us, I think Judith has a question for you. Devo?
Devo, first of all, once again, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you've watched the clip there. Peter Obi, the former presidential candidate for the Labour Party for 2023, highlighting key areas, health, education, and per capita income when it comes to prioritizing limited resources. But how can the government effectively do this, in your opinion?
Okay, Peter Obi was speaking to budget appropriation. Basically, he was analyzing and highlighting some aspects that he felt were not properly appropriated. And as you know, when you have slim resources, you have very little to accomplish goals and objectives that are far wider than the 27 trillion naira budget can take. But what is important is that the budget is a roadmap. It's like a strategy of how you intend to implement the promises or the mandates that you have given the people. I think what generally Nigerians should learn to discuss is the fiscal policy. We hardly discuss the fiscal policy. We always talk about CBN, who is the Monetary Policy Authority. We always talk about interest rates, which most people don't understand. But those things do not have a direct impact as much as the fiscal policy. The fiscal policy is actually the strategy. So if you listen to the fullness of his interview, he was talking more about moving Nigeria from consumption, the subsidies on FX, on electricity, on petroleum subsidy, as I call it, the 7 trillion naira challenge. What else would you have done with 7 trillion naira out of 27 trillion naira instead of paying subsidies? What could it have gone to? So that's what he was pointing to. That's what he was highlighting, and how the little money that we have is literally being wasted on things that we don't exactly need immediately.
All right, then. Well, thank you, Devo. Well, I want to come into the studio here, Funke Treasure here with us. I want to know your opinion regarding the mismanagement of funds when it comes to Nigeria and how this has gone on for so long, and also noting what he said from the clip there regarding Nigeria not having a national library. I didn't actually consider that until today. I mean, until the interview.
Too, Zeno.
If I say that I know, would that make me a geek?
Yeah, we're all. Oh, you did? Okay.
I know.
I didn't realize that until I listened to him. First, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
coming
Good to be
on.
here. So, listening to Mr. Peter Obi, there's some things he touched on spot on. Check for me. He's put his hand on the pulse of the nation and the majority of the people about the government asking us to be frugal and they leaving feasting away, because that's the impression that a lot of Nigerians have. Having said that, and I like that he said governance is a demand, arises from a demand from the people. So you respond to the demand of the people. We've seen the figures. I mean, I like that as he was talking, you were bringing
The bureaus of all the
yes.
and all the
So
headlines.
my worry when I first watched him was, how do we fact check all of these? Because we've seen from the Kamala Harris, Donald Trump debate
very interesting.
that, you have to fact check some of the things that politicians say, which brings me to the point that Peter Obi himself said that the problem with Nigeria is the totality of our politicians. Because the interviewer asked him, including the LP representatives at the legislature, they all collected these gifts of SUVs. And then the question that came to me was, really, beyond the politicians, what about us as a people? Why is it that some people we thought will get there and be the difference are not living up to that difference we're all yearning for? So it puts a question mark on what we also aspire for as people going into governance. Having said that, let's come to these humongous amount of monies that we see both the executive and the legislature allocate to things that are not priority to us, the people. Mr. Obi talked about particular development areas, spot on, education, health, food. He talked about food security and internal security quite eloquently. I give that to him. If we cannot eat, what are we doing as a people? What are you doing if you cannot feed your people? That is number one. Number two, Nigeria is the third largest debtor to the World Bank. The question is, what have we done with all the monies we collected? Because it's not percolating to the people. I'm here to speak for the people. I'm here to ask on behalf of the people, what about us? Where are we in this whole scenario, in this whole matter? How are you responding to our demands? Peter Obi said if he were there, if he were the one, he wouldn't start with an announcement of the fuel subsidy removal. He will deal with the criminality and then go into the details of what needed to be done. My question is, and this is a pervading question in all that we do, how do we deal with the criminality, the vast criminal area that Nigeria has turned into? How do we deal with the criminality?
Speaking of the criminality, I want to come to Olabode for this one, and it's about the presidential jet and the expenses of the presidential jet. To begin with, I remember the Speaker of the House, and that is none other than the ex-governor of Akwa Ibom State, Godswill Akpabio. He was saying that, all the reports about them, confirming a purchase of a private jet for the presidency was untrue. It had not happened. They had not gotten any requisition for that in front of them. I remember he was saying that, there were clips of him saying that, addressing the House and also addressing the press that was present there at the House. And then he went on to say, if that comes to our table, it would not be a secret and we would affirm and purchase a jet. In that interview with with the ex-presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, he raised the cost of a presidential jet, but also a cost of maintaining a presidential jet that has often been criticized, especially the details about its purchase, maintenance being shrouded in secrecy. And so I'm coming to meet you, Olabode, about the issue of transparency and being able to nip at the bud what she talked about in the criminality of it. They claimed they didn't see a requisition. They claimed there wasn't any purchase. They had not seen it. If they were going to purchase it, they would definitely make note of it. If not because of the Chinese firm and the seizure of those jets, we most likely would not have known about the presidential jets.
Yeah. So it's saddening that this kind of thing is happening. I think our leaders or rulers need to look inwards, and begin to do what they were voted in to do. Even though, the case of being voted in is still under debate, like Peter Obi said. It's a sad situation, and I think they need to do something very fast. I don't like to personalize some of these things, but as at yesterday night, while going out, there was an accident. We were on the road. We tried to stop and quickly help, the people that might have been involved. And the area boys just swarmed on us, and we had to just take off. There's a lot of hunger in the land. And the truth is, a hungry man like this is an angry man. So even when you are trying to make sense, to let people understand that we need to feel a bit of pain or something like that, you also need to, encourage the people, not, you don't start living, large and all of that.
Yeah, you don't feast when everybody's fasting. That was a
Exactly.
quote from the
Yes,
interview.
exactly. And the issue of food, even when we are talking about inflation, the food inflation is the highest in that basket of, in the CPI. They really need to look at what's happening in the middle belt and, in the northern part of the countries, because the farmers are not able to farm. And what is going to happen later is there's going to be food scarcity. It's not going to be child's play at all, because you can't keep on. We're already importing a lot of things from from overseas. You can't also start importing all.
So it will no longer be the affordability of food, it will be
the total scarcity.
The scarcity.
Yes, the way things are going.
That's a very grim, what you call it now. But he also mentioned something else very interesting regarding wastage and government wastage, and regarding the number of ministers that the government has currently. I'd like us to take that clip on the number of ministers, and then we'll come back to talk about that. Devo is still with us, and I'll be coming to you with that question. So let's take this one. Peter will be on the number of ministers and wastage in the government.
I have to look at their productivity. What is this they're going to do? Just like I always said, it is just not the number of people. What are they doing? If they are required and they have something they're doing, yes. But that what they're doing will be measurable. People have to feel it and know why they're engaged.
Okay, what I'm really trying to pin you down to tell me is, if you have your way and you have executive order that gives you permission to choose how many ministers you want to work with, would you like to have 6 or 10 or 20, or just say 36 is the number, I am happy to work with 36?
Thank you very much. I won't tell you exactly what I'm going to use here, but I won't go beyond the Constitution.
So what do you say to the current government that has gone beyond the Constitution by having more than 36 ministers?
They should stick to the Constitution and do the right thing, because that's the basis on which they're governing. That is what they swore an oath to keep. The oath is to respect and keep the Constitution. So you live within it. That is actually the essence of what you're doing.
So would you call the action of the current government and the support that they've got from the National Assembly, would you describe it as illegal and unconstitutional?
Yes, it is, because you're not working with the Constitution. You have to work with the Constitution. That is your Bible. That's what you swore an oath to keep. You cannot swear an oath to obey this and do otherwise. It's the same thing that is happening. Whether you're talking about issues of mismanagement of resources, corruption, everything, you're going out of the oath.
Peter will be there on the number of ministers, and he went on to explain exactly how this causes wastage. He gave the instance of his time as governor and how he had asked that every car used by every buddy in his retinue be from the PAN, that's Peugeot Assembly Line of Nigeria. And he talked about using Peugeot 406s, which, if you want to measure in the sense of affluence, is not really a car that any rich person would want to use. But this is what he did in his stead. However, he noted that he was met with plenty of backlash, and also, it was fought against. Now, Devo Okorie, you're still with us. Let's talk about this. What's your take on the number of ministers and the amount of wastage that amounts from this number?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Loud and clear.
Yes, government wastage is a function of the administration. We all know Peter Obi's style. Yes, he's frugal. Yes, he's prudent. He didn't even need to answer the question put to him, what would you have done? When he was governor, he didn't have a cabinet that was larger than 20 people. Government profligacy has always been, I think between the first and the fifth administrations of this nation since 1960, It was always usually a small cabinet. It came with Obasanjo when the ethnic and religious sentiment started, whereby he then said, okay, to stop the squabble around you pick my person against the other person, it was put into the constitution that a minister should come from each state of the government. Now, putting 36 ministers does not equal impact, does not equal effectiveness. It's about what they do. You could even have 3 ministers. I mean, check America with the population and size that they have. They literally, I think they have about 19 secretaries. Now, the wastage, like I said, is a function of the government in power. I have no issue with 45 ministers. I'm telling you, the government can carry it. The point is, are they doing their job? Are they delivering? There's a mandate that the president signed up to when he received his inauguration. And what did he tell you? He said, don't pity me. I know what I asked for. He also has an essay on presidential ministerial cabinet performance, which was basically a form of accountability for ministers at every point in time, hopefully maybe every 100 days or every half year, to check what they have promised and what they have delivered. This is 1.5 years into the administration, and we haven't seen the president take an evaluation of his ministers. Now, even if the president is not doing his job as the executive, you have a National Assembly made up of, that's a bicameral assembly, made up of about 307 House of Reps and about 109 Senate members who, for the lack of me, I have not seen what they have done. I don't even have issues with the money that they get because, yes, it is absurd. However, are they giving us equal and like delivery in terms of checks and balances on the executive? Are they passing into law policies that will move Nigeria from consumption to production? Look at the fuel crisis and the inability of local refineries from the NNPC to the Dangote to function. What policies have they put in place? Look at the food insecurity. What policies have they put in place to ensure that in the meantime, Nigeria is able to import what it requires while it builds on local capacity? What policies have they put in place to check corruption, which is literally the reason why you have this criminal element in every form of subsidy that is given? This is what P2B was referring to. Anytime policies come that are meant to lift the people, that are meant to elevate the country, you see criminal entities, criminalization of everything that is done. Why did they remove the electricity subsidy? Why did they remove the FX subsidy? Because it was being abused.
Funke Treasure is very excited in the studio here.
We see Funke just, swinging in a chair. But
what is it, Funke?
No, and Funke, I have to ask, right? Because P2B was saying that a return to parliamentary system of government will also tackle the issue of transparency in Nigeria, to toe the same line with Devo, because I see you,
yes,
flipping, and also to speak on the
because for
return.
me, what we need is reform in governance.
Do you think returning to parliamentary system?
Yes, I've been an advocate of return to parliamentary system of governance, because look at us. We've done this US imported presidential system of governance for so long. It has not yielded anything. We cannot manage it in this climate, in Nigeria. Let us return to that system where you will come, present your facts, present your strategy, and people will vote whether to go with it or not. It is the most beautiful, it is what I think Nigeria needs, given our peculiarity. So if we're going to start tackling the criminality, you will go to the parliament to tell us that you want a library for legislature for 15 billion, right? And then justify why that should be bigger than the budget for a national library at just about $1 billion. What kind of book? Let me not say book. What are they reading at the legislature, so much so that they need that kind of money for a library that can only be accessed by them, will only be used by them, not the entire collective, not all of Nigerians. It is just preposterous. How do you even do that?
And then
P2B said something about the residence of the vice president. Good question to ask. Why do we need another residence for the vice president? He asked, where was the former vice president living? You see, these are the things that even the biggest supporters of the sitting presidents are not understanding right now. Why are we
There's
doing
a video
all of
we
this?
saw yesterday. It trended on social media. All of the top guns in this administration was there singing, "On your mandate, Tinubu." On your mandate, Tinubu. We said that should have been the song for today's.
That's not a problem for me. I mean, you have your supporters and you have those who don't support you. But what we are saying is that in terms of governance, are the people happy?
I'm glad you're saying
about the state of the nation right now? I can stand on whatever mandate, that is fine. But what we need as a people is this mandate, is it yielding prosperity for us? Are we growing?
That's what I'm asking. So if you're saying, so again, when you chant songs like that, and when you show where your solidarity lies, and when you look at the Speaker of the House, who is supposed to be a different arm of the government that checks the presidency and checks the executive and make sure to continue to do that, check the power of them, are chanting such words and such songs, it begs to ask the question, can there be any balance where, for example, with the presidential jets or the House of where they're being able to sign up, ways and means?
I am just sorry for us as Nigerians, because it looks like nobody is speaking for us right now. If the executive, just as you said, checks and balances, if the executive, let's say, is not doing things right, what about the legislature? And within the legislature, what about some of the people who've put their confidence in these LP legislators? Why are they not singing different tunes in there?
Funke Treasure, I'm going to let you finish on that one. But the two aspects of the interview I'd like us to touch on a lot, but I'm going to come to you regarding agriculture. In fact, there's a clip from the interview we have to play regarding his... you're a trader, so you would know this. He talked about inflation as it's being a direct influence from our lack of investment in agriculture. But on the other hand, people would normally think that it's a thing of crude oil or our investment in crude oil. So it kind of like switched up on us there. Let's play that clip, and when we come back, you give us your take on the ex-governor's thought on agriculture as an investment for Nigeria. Let's check this out from the NC exclusive interview. Peter will be on agriculture.
We have been informed that whilst we pull that, we'll play it now.
Go back to my position on agriculture. Is to say that the two most critical area in Nigeria that is actually giving us the crisis is personal insecurity and food insecurity. And by solving food insecurity, you would have done a lot in dealing with personal or human insecurity. Because today, from the all records, you have 38 million people on the verge of extreme hunger. And you have huge number of your poverty capital of the world. So by going to deal with food insecurity, you're going to invest in agriculture, which will solve hunger, which is one of your biggest crises today, being 109 out of 120-something countries measures hungriest country. You're going to solve your hunger. You're going to create huge job, because you're seeing it as the biggest in terms of GDP contribution. It's actually the same thing in employment. So you're going to solve issue of unemployment, because it's going to employ more people. It's going to help your industries, because they have raw materials to process. The entire value chain is agriculture, processing, marketing, and of course, till it gets to the table where people eat. So you're going to be dealing with that entire value chain, which will create jobs. It's going to help you to deal with the issue of inflation, because the biggest contributor to inflation today, negatively, is food inflation. By having more product, you're going to bring it down. You're going to be saving money you use in the production of food products, again helping your foreign exchange.
That's right.
Like I said, I hear you there, Funke. She says that's right. But there you have it there, Peter Obi, on agriculture and how the entire value chain can actually profit Nigeria when it comes to employment and even inflation as well. Olabode, your take on this?
Yeah, Peter Obi is very right. What he said. I mentioned the issue of hunger earlier on. He's addressed that. And then the issue of unemployment as well. If you have the agri sector really developed, it can employ a vast amount of youths that we see, like the kind of people that I said were harassing us yesterday night. You spoke about oil and inflation as well. The person that was talking about oil was talking about the revenue side of things now. If you can produce more oil, then you're getting more revenues. The problem with Nigeria is we are becoming a basket case, quote unquote, because even when you produce more, you have a situation where the money is being squandered. The issue with Nigeria didn't start today. There have been times when we had, I think we were producing above 2.5 million, even in the 70s, before I was born, you know, and now we are producing less than that. Even when I think President Jonathan was there, we're producing above 2 million barrels. We are not producing that much
anymore.
So it's more like we're not just an underdeveloped country, we're a retrogressing country. We're just getting worse and worse. And the problem we now have is the little money that we have is not even being utilized appropriately, frugally, you know, like the way Peter Obi would say we should spend money.
But why is the president still ardently stuck on the method that he's using? Is there hope in the future? Is there something we're not seeing? Is there light at the end of the tunnel? We just have to suffer through it now.
So we hear, meaning there might be some ministerial change or something and all of that. I'm hoping that he will bring in a new set of people. I think one of the big issues in Nigeria which people don't like talking about is the issue of vested interest. And Peter Obi said in that interview about states, he spoke about state capture. When the interview was being played, she was saying something about, you know, it's like we are just different. They are different set of people. We are different. Do you understand? So it's like there's actually and truly a state capture. I've been involved in projects where we started something together and some people just decided that, no, you know, they're the only ones
because they've got interest in it.
Exactly.
I'm going to let you come back to that thought, but I've been informed that we have a short break that we must take, and when we come back, hopefully we can conclude this conversation. Do stay tuned. We're coming back to this. And then, so we're wrapping up when we come back. 4 more minutes, okay. Quick. Can I talk to Devo? Devo, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you
Devo,
hear me?
we're going to ask about subsidy. I know you're passionate about it, but I'm going to need you to keep it short because we only have 4 minutes when we come back.
All right.
Yes, and I'd like to take a Welcome back. We've only got a few minutes, so I'm going to be quick with this. During the NC exclusive with Peter Obi, he talked about subsidy. When he was asked if he would have removed subsidy, he said yes, he would have removed it, but maybe not on day one. He would have put in a, well, let's say apparatus to make sure that the Nigerian people do not suffer through. Devo Korea, you are a very passionate individual when it comes to talks about subsidy, its removal, implementation, or whatnot. What was your take on Peter Obi's, his take on removal of subsidy?
I think Peter Obi was being diplomatic. As they say, when you fight corruption, corruption fights you back. You think Tinubu expected the people who are fighting him now to fight him as regards subsidy? So the point is this. I would have naturally said remove it gradually. But you see, these people are bent on using criminal subsidy to keep Nigeria where it's at. You can see, even though we're paying a higher price, we're still fighting for fuel as the station. That's because there's still a little portion of subsidy left that they're using to import in. And as long as they don't get the opportunity to put that small jar on top, they will never remove it. So what we're pushing for and what we hope anybody who comes into government will push for is 100% deregulation. Government should get its hands out of business. Allow the private sector play its role. It might come with a pinch. I know it will hurt Nigerians initially, but our focus is on finding how the savings that government will get on subsidy can be used on other meaningful things like education, health, like transport, like policing, like aviation, etc. That's the only option, because as we are, this is a nation that enjoys the culture of corruption and what I call it lawlessness. So 100% deregulation, just like you have in diesel. You don't see us fighting for diesel because anybody and everybody can bring in diesel.
Let me get your take on it for me, Funke Treasure, because you also you were expressing some thoughts while he was speaking.
Yeah, I was just saying quickly, and I want to touch on the things that I didn't have time to talk about. Yes, we have to fight. We can see that corruption is fighting back. It's not that the president wants evil of miscalculated. Maybe he didn't really do it right from the beginning, but we can see, just as Devo said, that corruption is fighting back. In terms of agriculture, we have we have Ministry of Livestock, right? In addition to what we've had. I mean, this is a nation that had Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, and we're at the point where we're saying a being power. So that something is wrong. Then in terms of cost of governance, I'm wondering, what do we need these junior ministers for? We have 2 ministers per sector. What are they doing? What was the State Minister of State doing? We don't know, because they're not delivering. So maybe Chinese whisperings that there's going to be some cabinet reshuffle.
It's very interesting that during his time of campaigning, the supporters or everyone else who were analysts at the time and those who were in support of the APC would say he was a bureaucrat and a technocrat, and he had an eye for talent. Maybe these junior ministers are the talents.
I think that's part of what we're saying about the cost of governance. Some of these ministers are just not necessary. That's why we're saying let us shift. There has to be a shift to parliamentary from this presidential. It's not working.
Real quick,
and then let's have a conference.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to mention on the issue of petrol subsidy and all of that is that, you see, as long as exchange rates continue to go up, petrol is priced in dollars. Even Dangote will not sell to you below its cost price or below what you can get on the international market. So if you say you've increased petroleum prices and you're not watching what's happening in the FX market, what will happen is you have to keep on increasing the prices to match the cost.
Olabode, I'm going to pause you there. We've been given some more time to have this conversation.
Oh, okay.
So here's what we're going to do. Let's go for the news real quick, because Judith's going to bring that to us. And when we get back, we're still going to talk on some of the issues raised by the ex-governor, Peter Obi.
Switch gears now to the conversation from earlier inside of Breakfast Extra.
Yes, indeed. We're still on the NC exclusive from earlier this week on Wednesday when it aired, and all the matters that fell out from inside of there. And just before the break, we were actually talking about subsidy. Our guests had plenty to say about that, so we decided to extend it into this hour. Funke Treasure, were you done on that thought you were sharing with us regarding subsidy? However, how about we do this? There is a clip from the interview that I'd like us to take, and this is on Peter Obi's take on subsidy. I'm hoping that we can play that so that we can get his context on it and exactly how this matters in the grand scheme of things when it comes to Nigeria for the future. So let's take this from NC exclusive. Hopefully we'll be able to get the substance.
Because I remember you did say that from day one, you say subsidy is gone. What would you have done?
I didn't say from day one. I said I would remove subsidy.
You remove it. Okay.
You know, I didn't say from day one, and I wouldn't have done it
from day
just
one.
Ordinary announcement.
Okay.
I said, go and read my manifesto. I have to first remove the criminality associated with the subsidy, because the criminality was over 50% of the subsidy. And then after removing it, we would have been able to present a detailed cost.
There you have it. Remove the criminality first before removing a subsidy. Before we went on that break for the news, it was actually Olabode we were talking with. So Olabode, let's come to you regarding that. Now, you were sharing your thoughts on that. Removing the criminality would be what exactly? How do you think that he might have thought, or what do you think he meant by that? Achieve. Thank you very much.
So, you see, the issue of criminality in all cases is evolving. What do I mean by that? If you say you remove subsidy today, it doesn't mean that they won't create a situation where the so-called subsidy will be back in the system. So when initially he said subsidy is gone, I think prices went to like 480 initially, and then about 600 thereabouts. But then there was an issue in the FX space. And because we import a lot of these things, we are hoping Dangote would at least limit, if not, eliminate the issue of importation of petroleum products. Once there's still issue in the FX space, petroleum and oil stuff are priced on the international markets in US dollars. What will happen is the price of the fuel or the petroleum products will have to keep going up in line with our FX exchange rate. So if you say you remove subsidy in one area, or you remove the criminality in one space, what about what's happening in the FX space as well? And then if you remove the one there, you have to think of other areas where...
So it might be a complete reorientation of the Nigerian mentality.
So you see, when we talk about... when we talk about the economy, it's not just... We shouldn't just look at the financial aspect. There's also the socio-political economy. So the political economy is what Peter Obi was hampering on about, the politicians, and now it's more like there's a state capture whereby they are the ones that just do whatever they want, and then we bear the brunt, you understand? There's also that, mindset of even the people in charge. Because a lot of times, this criminality is not done directly by the politicians.
What drives, you're a trader, FX, so I'm going to ask you, what drives the Naira against the dollar where we see it go higher than the dollar? What are the factors?
So your foreign reserves have a huge impact on that. Your interest rates, if you have high interest rates, it has a negative and a positive aspect. The positive aspect is if you have high interest rates, people would be coming in with funds so that they can get good returns from your end. So it's attractive for them to come in. But the other side of it is those who want to do business locally then have to borrow at a higher rate.
All right. Now, with that being said, because you said there are two parts of this criminality, besides the the subsidy removal and
Yes.
all of the fuel that they are drinking that they claim that Nigeria is using. There's also the FX where, you know, there's a discrepancies with the price.
Exactly.
What then what would it look like in terms of removing the criminality, but also the naira against the dollar being at a formidable price?
Yeah. So you need to build your reserves. That's what happened under.
Muhammadu Buhari's tenure.
No. It went down under his tenure. Went down. I think it really started going down under Jonathan's tenure. But I want to start from when we went back into democracy during Obasanjo's regime. He started really building the foreign reserves. That's when the excess crude account, I think, got to over $12 billion or something like that. You understand? And then Yar'Adua also continued with that tempo. I think the problem really started as that when Yar'Adua fell ill. I want to think a lot of stuff started happening before Jonathan actually stepped in.
Right. So then what would it take to build that reserve to get that formidable?
So that's
what
where
can we do
the
to
oil production bit comes
So
in.
we're back to the oil. I was trying to make you get back to So that's why we're back to the oil.
Oil, not agriculture, like Peter will be
So,
suggested.
agri too will do a lot. There are countries where, you know, their own mainstays agriculture. Even in Nigeria, before oil was discovered,
There was agriculture.
my own school was built with cocoa. That's what we were told.
We had the groundnut pyramids
exactly in
of
the north.
Where are they now?
Exactly.
That's why I referenced Operation Feed the Nation, Green Revolution, and look at where we are. The other day, my friend in Ghana brought Ghana chocolate because they're also producers of cocoa. Where are we?
Yeah, and if you look at the chart, we have dropped significantly.
Mr. Peter Obi talked about moving from consumption to production. So all of these things that we produce, where do they end? Number one, and production has dropped significantly in terms of agriculture. So you're saying if we're not doing oil, what else? So the sitting president came with the Blue Economy Ministry. So we're waiting to see how we can convert that to some advantage for the country. However, the other day I went to Niger State by road. Of course, there's no airport there. You would be amazed at the vegetation. The landscape is one of the most beautiful I have seen in Nigeria. I was shocked to the marrow. And I bought Niger rice. Yes. That's what I'm eating now. Nice. And I said, but we have all of this. What are we doing with agriculture? We have so much we can do with it. If only there will be consistency with our policies. When the sitting president leaves, another president is going to come and discontinue and then start his own. I think that's why we're where we are. And then our emperors at the state level, our governors, where exactly are they putting their monies? If you're not pursuing agriculture relentlessly and intentionally, then there's a problem.
It's always when we talk about agriculture, oftentimes it's very interesting how the solutions are right in front of us, but somehow it's very hard to grasp. You know, it's like air. We see it, we breathe it, we can feel it, but somehow you can't seem to grasp it. And it makes you wonder, and I'm coming to you, DeVoe, for this question. What would it take in terms of our political class? Is it political will? Is it transparency? Is it more money? Is it flushing out the unknown gunmen? What would it take for our agricultural sector to get back to its glory days?
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
I always advocated that Nigerian leaders should be flogged, okay? And I mean that literally. Flogged for the failure in the agricultural sector. Peter Obi did do a good breakdown of how impacting, it's almost like a 360 impact for agricultural sector, from first addressing food insecurity, okay? How does a nation that's within the equator, with all the arable land that we have, not have enough food for itself, talk less of exporting? Two, the agricultural sector is among the GDP, it's the second largest employing sector in the country, okay? Thirdly, remember part of the poverty, taking us out of the poverty capital, is by creating jobs that employ people. The agricultural sector will address that directly. 2, Nigeria suffers a revenue problem. Most of our revenue comes in from the oil sector, that's our FX, and our non-oil FX, though diversified, is minimal. Now, agriculture, if supported, would have given us extra income, especially when other areas are suffering. Thirdly, if you have sufficient food, okay, enough for yourselves and extra, meaning you're producing in commercial quantities, you would have enough to export, okay? Sometimes I ask people, whilst we are here looking for food and planning to import, the countries that you're importing from, like Ukraine is going through a war, yet they're able to import to Nigeria. Corn takes 3 months to grow. Rice takes 3 months to grow. Other crops that are perennial take about 8 months to a year to grow. Why have we not called for a state of emergency in agriculture? I think we're joking. I think we're playing. There's no other person that we need to tell us what is required to be done as regards agriculture. If you remember, like your co-panelist mentioned, before the discovery of oil, Nigeria's income came from cocoa, groundnut, and palm oil. How is it that we lost the capacity to rule in those areas? And these are the basic things that we can do. And when I say basic, I'm not referring to subsistence. The First Lady told us to go and put farms at the back of our houses. Yes, that is helpful, but that will not get us to where we require, that will get us to incomes that will require to boost and generate income for ourselves. I think that next time we go for election, well, we don't have to wait for election. Nigerians should push the National Assembly to call a state of emergency in agriculture, because it's just a complete shame that a country blessed with the agricultural capacity that Nigeria has is suffering or is literally going through a famine. Look at the flood that took place in Maiduguri. The flood should be a form of expedited or allocated irrigation to last from dry season to wet season.
Right.
But you can see, because of the corruption that took place in the maintenance of that dam, right now that flood has destroyed almost 10 states worth of proper agriculture taking place. Olam did a backward integration of $150 million in Nasarawa. In the last flood that we had 2 years ago, all the rice that was planted was capsized in water. This is what you get when Nigerian citizens tolerate the bad governance that comes from whichever administration. So I think as a people, we should begin to push for a state of emergency in agriculture first, to at least address some of the issues. And that also includes addressing insecurity. Without state police, this insecurity will continue. And without security, our farmers will not be able to do the needful to be able to give us enough to eat small amala and beggary on the table.
Devo, as always, salient point that you raised there is state of emergency on agriculture, state of emergency on security. Should we declare state of emergency on education as well, Funke?
Well, let me quickly add that Devo is just spot on.
I noticed that you're best friends with him now, because you're just like...
Yeah, so in Niger State, they were telling me they have 2 rounds of tomato planting and harvesting, but they now do 1 round. Why? Because, first of all, the rain, but then again, in security, because the farmers are afraid to go to the farms. And it's pervasive everywhere in Nigeria because of this internal security, so food security, internal security. What was the question again? Because I needed to say
Education.
That. Education, of course. Oh, Lord.
Thank you. The price of tuition has tripled in 1 year alone. School books tripled. Out of school children, we still are not able to bring that number.
You don't have kids.
Please, I pay fees.
No, but this is what we see every day. The issues we're dealing with in the education sector is just... So then you begin to wonder why the legislature would allocate 15 billion to a national library. Look at primary education. Dr. Peter Obi talked about primary healthcare. Let's not even go there. Let's talk about this education. You've asked me, how many of our schools have chairs? How many of our children are not sitting in potholes in their classrooms? How many of our children have slates and books and stuff to read, even when there is UBEC and SUBEB and all these agencies and all? Look at our universities. Many of them they're heaving. They're practically caving into pressure from this electricity bills. It's difficult from primary to secondary to tertiary. There is a crisis in education, which is why all of us took on the Professor Tahir, the Minister of Education. Please don't go here, because really that's a distraction. The real issues are there.
Wow. We're out of time, but lastly, Nigeria, state of emergency, yes or no? We'll start with you.
Maybe yes or no? I don't want to be an alarmist, but yes, we need things to work.
Devo, state of emergency, Nigeria, yes or no? Nigeria, state of emergency.
Devo,
we lost your audio there.
I bet you
we cannot hear you.
He says yes.
But he says yes, that's it.
Well, it's obvious that everything ties into everything else. Education, food security, personal security, and all whatnot. It all ties into each other. It was a very interesting interview here on News Central with the exclusive with Peter Obi. And I'm sure that a lot of people actually had plenty diverse things to say, whether they enjoyed it, whether they had certain grouse about it, but it was very interesting and eye-opening to see. And we have, by so doing, also given our own take on some of the issues that he raised there with our very wonderful panel here. I want to say thank you very much, Devo Okorie, for joining us on video call, and of course, you, Funke Treasure, and also Olabode. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very robust, and you've made a new friend, so I'll be giving you Devo's contacts, because you guys were vibing.
Devo, this is, you guys might want to invite him to have a seat at the table.
Oh, yes.
Devo. Yeah, you should.
Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady.